stop using your strength when you roll is terrible advice. This well-intentioned advice is misleading and not at all helpful. When I first started training jiu-jitsu, I was already physically strong. I was told that I shouldn't use my strength when I rolled and when I was sparring. And I took that advice quite literally. I stopped using any of my strength. It wasn't until my coach pulled me aside and told me, Kieren, you have to use your strength. You should be an absolute menace for people to deal with because you're so physically strong and physically dominant. And once you have the technique to back you up, you'll be even more difficult to deal with. And this advice changed everything for my jiu-jitsu game. And all it took was a simple perspective shift away from shunning my physical attributes to leaning into them, combined with my applied technique. And it made the world of difference. I've always believed that strength is an advantage. I know in jiu-jitsu, we're supposed to say that strength doesn't matter. Well, it does. No matter how you cut it, physical attributes do matter. John Danaher. Why is strength so frowned upon in jiu-jitsu? BJJ is a superpower where the stronger, larger opponent loses to the smaller, weaker guy. That means technique is king and you shouldn't rely on your strength. But the stronger, larger opponent in this scenario doesn't know jiu-jitsu. When the playing field is leveled with skill, it paints a very different picture. I do believe that when two athletes are of matched skill level, the stronger man will generally win. John Danaher. Beginners, especially those spazzy white belts, are told to stop using your strength when you're sparring. And that's because when people first start training, they default to what they know. They default to primal instincts, which often involves zero skill application, just grabbing onto and squeezing what they can and holding on for dear life. This well-intentioned advice is aimed at encouraging these beginners to not just grab and hold and squeeze on until they gas out their arms, but instead to try and apply some of the techniques that they're being taught and apply some of the techniques that they know. Now this, I completely agree with. I disagree that you should not combine your strength with your applied technique. And I disagree that if you need to apply strength to your technique, then your technique sucks. I just don't think this is realistic. I don't think it's logical. The irony of the physical attributes that I always find is you would never tell someone that is flexible not to use their flexibility to their advantage when they roll and not to apply things like rubber guard or techniques that require a lot of flexibility. You would never tell a tall person that they can't use their long legs to their advantage to lock up a triangle or to play some sort of lasso guard. You would never tell someone with an unstoppable gas tank that they shouldn't use their endurance to their advantage when they roll to keep up the relentless pressure. You would never tell someone with powerful grips that they should not use their gripping to their advantage. It just doesn't make sense to me. Why would you tell someone not to use their strength? So why do I even care about this? Even if you disagree with everything that I've presented so far, here's the problem. When you actively shun or condemn a physical attribute like strength in jiu-jitsu, beginners will avoid it. People won't want to focus or prioritize their strength training off the mats. This has a cascading negative effect on the grappling community. Not lifting weights will reduce your performance, but more importantly, it will increase your risk of injury. In a sport with high injury rates, we must do everything that we can to encourage people to lift weights, prioritize their strength training to support their jiu-jitsu and reduce their risk of injury. I propose a mentality shift in the jiu-jitsu community away from shunning strength and toward encouraging strength training and strength development for jiu-jitsu athletes. It could be as simple as changing the advice that you give to those spazzy white belts away from don't use your strength when you roll to something like technique is always first, but strength is second. Look, at the end of the day, I don't mind the advice to beginners to try not to grab hold and squeeze something or just apply all their maximum strength when they don't have any technique to back them up. But when you perpetually tell people to stop using their strength, or you're demonizing strength in general in this sport, it paints a very negative picture, and you're going to instill the wrong mentality throughout jiu-jitsu or throughout grapplers in general. So I recommend that we take a pause, think about the advice that we're giving, what outcome we're trying to achieve, and think, is there another way of achieving the same outcome by getting the point across that technique needs to be applied without people thinking that they shouldn't be lifting weights or shouldn't be focusing on trying to get strong to support their jiu-jitsu. That's my rant. Thanks for watching. If you like what I have to say, check out some of my other videos on how to increase your strength and how to develop strength for jiu-jitsu while reducing your risk of injury.